What if I told you some of the best fantasy and science fiction stories of the last decade plus were not backed by big publishing houses at all? They didn't have marketing budgets, bookstore displays, or print ads. Yet they sold thousands, sometimes millions of copies, won awards, and built huge fan bases. Today, we're diving into the best of the indie shelves. Books that prove self publishing can absolutely stand shoulder to shoulder with the giants. How many will be books you've never heard of? Hey there, everyone. Jim here with Fantasy for the Ages. I host this channel with my son Zach. Today, it's just me flying solo, bringing you another deep dive into the amazing world of speculative fiction. Before we get rolling, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and hit that notification bell so you're reminded whenever we drop new content. And of course, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. Your support helps us keep this channel coming at you again and again. Not yet a Patreon member? Check out the link below to learn about the perks of being one of our supporters. So here's the thing. All of us come to BookTube to learn about books. Our love for books drives us to always want to find that next great read. But let's be honest, there are way too many fantasy and science fiction books published every year to possibly keep up on. And for self-published authors, the challenge is even bigger. Without that traditional publisher marketing machine, so many wonderful books just fly completely under the radar. And that's a shame, because as you'll see in this episode, some of those indie books are outstanding, incredible, spectacular. I've read a good number of self-published books, but in preparing for this episode, I've realized some of the best ever are still waiting for me. These are books that deserve a spot on your TBR just as much as the hottest traditionally published release. Now, self-published novels are not a new thing, but the game completely changed in 2007 when Amazon launched Kindle Direct Publishing. Suddenly, writers had a simple way to put their work directly into readers' hands. Well, relatively simple. And readers were eager to find fresh new voices outside the traditional gatekeepers. Since then, we've seen indie books not only find audiences, but sometimes explode into full-on publishing phenomena. And that brings us to today's episode. Over the next little while, I'm highlighting 4 self-published books from every single year, 2011 through 2024. One of the most successful and one of the most popular fantasy novels each year, and one of the most successful and one of the most popular science fiction novels from self-publishing. I've only read some of these, and those I can vouch for. The rest are highlighted based on the data I was able to find online. Regular viewers have come to appreciate that I love digging into the data. And based on what I've discovered, it's my TBR growing as well as some of yours. Honestly, all these titles look fantastic, and every one that I haven't read yet is now on my TBR. If you did some quick mental math there, you just realized I've got over 50 books to share with you today. This is going to be awesome. Fun side note, you'll notice as I go through these, many of them went on to be picked up by traditional publishers after the indie smash success they experienced. That's the dream of many self-published authors, and it's pretty inspiring to see it does actually happen. All right then, let's dive in. We start with 2011. The most successful science fiction self-pub of the year is The Martian by Andy Weir. Marooned on Mars after a mission goes sideways, botanist engineer Mark Watney survives by hacking life support, growing potatoes, and outthinking a planet trying to kill him. Back on Earth, NASA and an online world root for an impossible rescue. It's hard science fiction survival that reads like a thriller, and it broke into the mainstream after an initial self-pub Kindle run. Most popular sci-fi of 2011 was Wool, just the first section of Hugh Howey's initial release. In a subterranean silo where outside air is lethal, one mechanic's curiosity threatens a rigid, lethal order. What begins as a short story becomes a sprawling, claustrophobic saga about truth, control, and rebellion. Readers flocked to its episodic release, propelling a self pub phenomenon. Most successful fantasy of 2011 was A Dance of Blades, number two of the Shadow Dance series by David Dalgish. Assassin turned vigilante, Hearn stalks the alleys of Valderin, while thieves' guilds and nobles wage a shadow war. New alliances and betrayals sharpen the series' grim, fast-paced edge. Daglish's indie breakout cemented Shadow Dance as a reader favorite before Orbit's later re-releases. Most popular fantasy of 2011 is Blood of Requiem, number one of the Song of Dragons by Daniel Aronson. In a world that hunts their kind, the last shape-shifting dragon folk fight to protect a child who might be their salvation. Ancient magic, aerial battles, and tragic loss drive a swift, pulpy epic. Its accessible, bingeable style helped it surge with early Kindle readers. Moving to 2012, the most successful sci-fi is Wool Omnibus. So the entire series of the first book, what became Silo, it had been in 5 installments. Now it's one book, was published by Hugh Howey. The omnibus turns a viral short into a full dystopian epic. I really enjoyed reading this. As the lies of the silo unravel, a determined sheriff and mechanic risk everything to see the sky. The collection's success led to foreign deals and a major trad pickup while staying proudly indie at first. And of course, now there's an excellent Apple TV adaptation. Most popular sci-fi of 2012 is The Remaining, book one in the series by DJ Molay. Love these books, right up my alley. This is post-apocalyptic sci-fi. When a fast-moving plague collapses society, a lone Spec Ops officer emerges from a sealed bunker to execute a last-ditch plan. His mission? Locate survivors, rebuild hope, and survive human predators. Self-published success and strong reader buzz later drew Orbit's re-release. Most successful fantasy of 2012 is Bloodsong, the first book in the Raven's Shadow series by Anthony Ryan. Raised by a militant order, Valand Alsorna becomes a legend, and a prisoner who narrates the truth behind his bloody ascent. Academy trials, frontier wars, and political intrigue fuse into a classic coming-of-age epic. Its self-pub launch was a word-of-mouth rocket before Ace's pickup. Most popular fantasy in 2012 was A Dance of Shadows, Shadow Dance number 4, again by David Dalglish. As a ruthless lord tries to cleanse Valderin, Heron faces thieves' guilds, foreign gangs, and a city on the brink. The Watchers' battle escalates into a full-on urban war. This darker, bigger entry resonated with the growing Shadow Dance fandom. Continuing to 2013, our most successful sci-fi self-pub was The Atlantis Gene, number one of the Origin Mystery, a tech thriller science fiction novel by A.G. Riddle. A geneticist chasing an autism breakthrough uncovers an ancient human secret and a conspiracy spanning continents. Archaeology, biotech, and global cat-and-mouse stakes collide. It became an indie mega seller and launched a blockbuster trilogy. Most popular sci-fi release in 2013 goes to Terms of Enlistment, number one of Marco Cluse's Frontlines military science fiction novel. A slum-born recruit signs up for the armed forces, trading poverty for a brutal off-world war. Boot camp grit gives way to firefights against insurgents, and something far worse. Reader enthusiasm on Kindle propelled the series before 47 North's re-release. Most successful fantasy of 2013 goes to House of Blades, first book in the Traveler's Gate series by Will White. This is progression fantasy. When invaders destroy his village, Simon forges pacts with deadly magical territories to fight back. Dungeon crawl energy meets inventive magic systems and relentless leveling up. It won Reddit Fantasy's Stabby for Best Self-Published Novel and ignited White's career. Most popular fantasy of 2013 goes to Forged in Blood Part 1, number 6 in the Emperor's Edge series by Lindsay Bureker. This is steampunk-tinged fantasy. With the Emperor ousted and war at the gates, Amarantha's crew faces Forge's ultimate weapon and impossible choices. Heists, banter, and found family stakes drive this penultimate caper. Its indie release landed during Bureker's peak Kindle momentum. 2014. The most successful sci-fi here is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, book 1 of Becky Chambers' Wayfarers series. This is a space opera sci-fi novel I bet some of you did not realize it was first self-published. A patched-together tunneling ship's crew, AI, aliens, humans, takes a risky job that forces them to confront identity, family, and belonging. It's a cozy, character-first space opera with big heart. The self-pub launched and word-of-mouth acclaim led to traditional publication and awards attention. Most popular science fiction in 2014 goes to Starship's Mage, book 1 in the Starship's Mage series by Glenn Stewart. This is space fantasy. In a universe where mages jump starships through hyperspace, what a nice blend. A young sorcerer signs on and lands in a war of politics and piracy. Naval science fiction pacing meets fantasy mechanics. It quickly became a Kindle favorite and launched a long-running series. Most successful fantasy in 2014 goes to The Shadow of What Was Lost, book 1 of the Lycanius trilogy by James Eilington. This is epic fantasy. A young man with forbidden gifts is drawn into an ancient conflict as missing gods and a shattered prophecy stir. Non-linear twists and time-bending mysteries reward close reading. Its indie debut snowballed into international success. Most popular fantasy in 2014 is Of Sea and Shadow, book 1 of the Elder Empire series by Will White, action-adventure fantasy novel. Sailor spies and sea monsters collide as imperial guilds vie for power after the Emperor's death. Written parallel with Of Shadow and Sea, it offers swashbuckling intrigue from a complementary viewpoint. The dual launch thrilled White's growing fanbase. In 2015, our most successful self-published science fiction novel was Darknet by Matthew Mather. This is a tech thriller sci-fi novel. A chilling AI stalks a New York stockbroker through darknet markets, assassination rings, and virtual money systems. This is terrifying. He faces an intelligence that predicts his every move, forcing him into a high-stakes cyber battle. Mather's indie techno-thriller surged on Amazon charts and broadened his readership. Most popular sci-fi in 2015 is Artificial Absolutes by Mary Fan, a sci-fi adventure novel. When Jane Colt witnesses her best friend's kidnapping, she drags her reluctant brother into a desperate chase across the galaxy. Their hunt uncovers a dangerous conspiracy tied to artificial intelligence, threatening the foundations of human society. The novel earned critical notice, including a Publishers Weekly starred review, an unusual honor for an indie release. Most successful fantasy release in 2015 goes to The Labyrinth of Flame, book 3 in the Shattered Sigil series by Courtney Schaefer. Dev, Kieran, and Kara battle across desert empires and icy mountains to stop a devastating magical threat. The finale of Schaefer's trilogy blends climbing expeditions, espionage, and heartfelt friendship. Its professional quality indie release became a standout Kickstarter success. And guess what? The most popular fantasy release of 2015 is the same novel. It's the only time in the series this happens, but The Labyrinth of Flame just dominated fantasy in the self-published market of 2015. Its blend of character intimacy and high-stakes adventure earned glowing reader reviews across Goodreads and Amazon. By word of mouth and fan dedication, it became both the most critically successful and most loved indie fantasy of 2015. So, 2016, what do we got? Well, the most successful, this one's big now. In sci-fi, we've got Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is an evolutionary epic sci-fi novel. A terraforming experiment leaves uplifted spiders as heirs to a dead world. Millennia later, desperate human survivors arrive to claim it, sparking an unlikely confrontation. Acclaimed for its originality, it later won the 2016 Arthur C. Clarke Award. Holy cow. Most popular sci-fi of 2016 goes to Titanborn by Rhett C. Bruno. This is a space opera novel. In a harsh mining colony on Titan, an aging bounty hunter tracks rebels against Earth's corporate overlords. Bruno's pulpy action and noir voice found traction with fans. It built his career and indie brand before later joining with Aethon Podium. Most successful fantasy self-pub release in 2016 is The Crimson Queen, book one of Raveling by Alec Hudson. As empires collapse, a young boy with strange gifts finds refuge with a powerful sorceress, the Crimson Queen. Hudson blends classic, epic sweep with lyrical prose and fresh twists. Word of mouth made it a standout indie epic of 2016. Most popular fantasy release goes to Paternus, book one of the Paternus trilogy by Dirk Ashton. This is urban mythic fantasy. Phi and Zeke discover their mentor isn't who he seems. He's one of the firstborn, ancient beings tied to mythologies worldwide. When an age-old war reignites, humanity's fate is thrown into chaos. Its myth-smashing, action-packed style won broad Reddit fantasy acclaim. Continuing to 2017, our most successful science fiction novel in self-pub is The Punch Escrow by Tal M. Klein. Techno-thriller sci-fi novel. Teleportation promises utopia until Joel is duplicated by a glitch, and both versions must survive megacorps that want them gone. Equal parts hard sci-fi and page-turning thriller, it examines identity and technology's double edge. It became a rare indie with major Hollywood option buzz. Most popular science fiction of 2017 goes to We Are Legion, We Are Bob. Book one of the Bobbyverse by Dennis E. Taylor. This is space opera science fiction. After his death, software engineer Bob is uploaded into a self-replicating AI probe fleet exploring the galaxy. Bob's humor and nerd culture references fuel an addictive space opera romp. Reader enthusiasm catapulted it into one of the most beloved indie sci-fi series. Most successful fantasy of 2017 goes to Sufficiently Advanced Magic, book one of the Arcane Ascension series by Andrew Rowe. This is progression fantasy, lit RPG adjacent. 5 years after his brother's disappearance in a deadly magical tower, Corin Cadence is summoned to face the same trials, combining puzzles, leveling mechanics, and inventive combat. Rowe crafted a game novel for fantasy fans. Its runaway success made him a cornerstone of indie progression fantasy. Most popular fantasy of 2017 goes to Kings of Paradise, book one of Ash and Sand by Richard Nell. This is grimdark fantasy, our first grimdark on this list. Across icy barbarian wastes and tropical kingdoms, three fates collide: a brutal outcast, a brilliant prince, and a would-be tyrant. Nell spins a brutal, character-driven saga that fans of Erickson and Abercrombie adored. Word of mouth and critical comparisons boosted its indie profile. For 2018, the most successful sci-fi goes to Singularity Trap by Dennis E. Taylor, a space opera novel. When a miner encounters a strange metal infection in deep space, humanity faces an alien intelligence unlike any before. Equal parts mystery and cosmic horror, Taylor builds tension through his trademark wit. It topped indie sci-fi sales and secured Audible bestseller status. Most popular sci-fi for 2018 goes to Outsystem, Aeon 14, number 1, by M.D. Cooper. This is military space opera. Tanis Richards, ace pilot, is pulled into a mission to protect humanity's first interstellar colony and uncover a plot that could destroy it. Cooper's series spans dozens of books in the Aeon 14 universe. OutSystem and its sequels built one of the most dedicated Kindle sci-fi readerships. Most successful fantasy goes to The Grey Bastards, Book 1 of The Lot Lands by Jonathan French, more grimdark fantasy. In a brutal world of half-orc hog riders, Jackal seeks to protect his gang and uncover political corruption. It's violent, foul-mouthed, and strangely heartfelt. Winning Mark Lawrence's SPFBO gave it breakout acclaim. Don't know that acronym? Self-published fantasy blog-off. It's a pretty cool competition. Most popular fantasy for 2018 goes to Ghostwater, Cradle Number 5 by Will White. This is progression fantasy. Lyndon dives into a pocket dimension of abandoned experiments, desperate to advance his power. The trapped environment pushes characters into creative battles and alliances. White's Cradle series dominated Kindle charts, with Ghostwater a high point of popularity. Continuing to 2019, most successful sci-fi goes to The Salvage Crew by an unpronounceable name. Let's try this. Yudinaya Wajaratne. No idea if I got that right. This is space opera science fiction. A mismatched crew, overseen by a sardonic AI poet, is dispatched to salvage alien tech on a distant planet. Things go from bad to catastrophic when corporate betrayal collides with alien menace. Its unique voice and podium audiobook deal elevated it into breakout indie success. Most popular science fiction in the self-pub releases of 2019 goes to Ruins of the Galaxy, Book 1 by J.N. Chaney and Christopher Hopper. This is military space opera sci-fi. When Special Agent Lieutenant Magnus is framed and disgraced, he finds himself thrust into a galaxy-wide conspiracy tied to an alien superpower. With the help of an alien defector and a band of unlikely allies, he must uncover secrets that threaten humanity's survival. Packed with action, military intrigue, and cinematic pacing, this debut installment quickly became one of the most read indie sci-fi launches of 2019, spawning a long-running fan-favorite series. Most successful fantasy release of 2019 is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. This is one you've probably heard of. A martial epic fantasy release, Masaki hides her warrior past in a conservative coastal clan, but when invaders arrive, she and her son must rise against overwhelming odds. The book blends sweeping battles with heartbreaking family tragedy. Acclaimed by Reddit Fantasy Stabby Awards, it became one of the most decorated indie fantasy novels. Most popular fantasy release of 2019 is Underlord, Book 6 of the Cradle series by Will White. Again, progression fantasy. Lyndon finally achieves true advancement, but the uncaring world demands more strength as enemies loom. The fan-fueled Cradle phenomenon peaked with Underlord, which stormed Amazon charts. Its combination of momentum and community hype made it 2019's most popular indie fantasy release. For 2020, most successful sci-fi goes to Into the Serpent's Lair, The Frontier Saga Part 2, Rogue Casts, 15 in the series. This one's complicated. There's a whole bunch of little releases, although none of them are particularly small. This is all by Rick Brown, a space opera series. Brown continued his vast frontier saga with sprawling battles and first contact drama. His Kindle-dominating series was already a juggernaut by this point. Each installment maintained indie bestseller status. Most popular sci-fi goes to Critical Mass, Book 10 of the Expeditionary Force series by Craig Allenson, space opera. Skippy and Bishop's antics remained a phenomenon with audible dominance. Fans rated it sky high across platforms. Allenson's indie giant was again the people's choice. Most successful fantasy release in 2020 goes to Paternus, War of Gods, Book 3 of the Paternus series by Dirk Ashton. Urban mythic fantasy. As ancient beings out of global mythologies collide, Fi and Zeke are pulled into a last world shaking confrontation that will decide the fate of gods and mortals alike. City smashing set pieces, globe trotting lore, and big hearted character beats propel this trilogy finale. It capped one of indie fantasy's most enthusiastically reviewed series of the 2010s 2020s. Most popular fantasy release of 2020 goes to Bloodline, number 9 in the Cradle series by Will White, Progression Fantasy. Returning to his homeland, Lyndon confronts both his family and an ancient dread. It's a deeply emotional volume in the Progression saga. Readers on Goodreads and Amazon pushed it into indie stardom. For 2021, most successful sci-fi is Wayward Galaxy by Jason Anspach and J.N. Chaney, military sci-fi. Humanity's expansion collides with an alien frontier in a blend of fast-paced adventure and military grit. Its team pedigree, Galaxy's Edge creators, guaranteed strong indie sales. Most popular science fiction selection for 2021 goes to Breakaway, number 12 in the Expeditionary Force series by Craig Allinson, a space opera science fiction novel. With enemies closing in from every direction, Joe Bishop and Skippy face impossible odds to hold the galaxy together. Action, humor, and clever twists make it one of the most beloved installments in the series. Reader enthusiasm on Goodreads, Amazon, and Audible propelled it to the top of the indie sci-fi charts in 2021. The most successful fantasy of 2021 goes to The Return of the Knights, book 1 of the Dance of Light series by Gregory Contaxis. This is epic fantasy and one I got to read even before it was published. This is a great one. Bringing in all the positive vibes of classic fantasy. Swordplay, sieges, magic, loyalty, bravery. This indie epic launched with great acclaim, heavy social media promotion, and really took off. Now there's a whole series of these books out there. I recommend them all. They are worth your time. Most popular fantasy of 2021 goes to Reaper, book 10 in Will White's Cradle series. If you caught on here, this Cradle thing was a bit of a sensation. This is Progression Fantasy. The series surged to its greatest heights with this game-changing installment. Epic battles and shocking revelations thrilled fans. It trended across Goodreads and Reddit Fantasy all year. For 2022, most successful science fiction novel is Homefront, Drop Trooper Book 5 by Rick Partlow, military science fiction. This continues the best-selling Drop Trooper saga as Cam Alvarez defends Earth against alien menace. Its sales dominance in Kindle military sci-fi secured the year's crown. The most popular sci-fi choice for 2022 in self-publishing goes to Failure Mode, number 15 in Craig Ellinson's Expeditionary Force. After a mission ends in catastrophe, Joe Bishop and Skippy are forced into failure mode, scrambling to salvage what they can before Earth's enemies capitalize. A new strategic threat pushes the merry band of pirates into desperate moves and hard choices across the galaxy. Fan momentum was huge across formats: Kindle, Audible, community forums, making this one of the year's most talked about indie sci-fi releases. Most successful fantasy self-published release of 2021 goes to Legacy of Brightwash, Tainted Dominion, Book 1 by Crystal Matter. This is Gaslamp fantasy, a very character-driven novel. Police Inspector Teshue navigates corruption, crime, and forbidden magic in a grim industrial setting. Its SPFBO finalist status and rave reviews put it on the indie map. Most popular fantasy novel of 2022 goes to Dread God, Cradle number 11 by Will White, Progression Fantasy. The series' penultimate book brought Lyndon and companions to clash with god beasts. Readers drove it to number 1 Kindle overall. Its popularity was unmatched in indie fantasy that year. For 2023, the most successful sci-fi novel is Sentenced to War by J.N. Chaney and Jonathan Brazee. This is military sci-fi. Young soldiers are forced into the meat grinder of galactic conflict. The series combined military grit with relentless pacing, capturing wide Kindle Unlimited readership. Its sales dominance was clear in 2023 charts. Most popular sci-fi is Aftermath, book 16 of the Expeditionary Force series by Craig Allinson. This one, space opera sci-fi. After the events of Failure Mode, Joe Bishop and the merry band of pirates are forced to reckon with what their wins and losses have unleashed across the galaxy. New intelligence suggests the enemy they thought they understood is changing the rules of the game. Snark, strategy, and large-scale stakes return in a crowd-pleasing continuation of this long-running indie phenomenon. But most successful fantasy for 2023 in self-publishing goes to Of War and Ruin, book 3 of The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. This is epic fantasy. As war rages, heroes and dragons are forced into desperate gambits, and long-laid secrets come crashing into the open. Cahill blends sprawling epic battles, intimate character arcs, and stunning world building in what many fans call the high point of his series so far. Kickstarter and direct-to-reader campaigns pushed this release to traditional level sales and global recognition, making it 2023's standout indie fantasy success. Most popular fantasy self-published of 2023 is Waybound, book 12 of Cradle, the finale of Will White's progression fantasy series. This long-awaited finale saw Lyndon and friends face their final cosmic trials. Emotional payoffs and spectacular battles made it beloved across fan communities. It topped charts and dominated reviews as the indie fantasy event of the year. And finally, that brings us to 2024. The most successful science fiction and self-publishing goes to The Object by Joshua T. Calvert. This is hard sci-fi. A scientist at a remote Hawaiian NASA base, Dr. Melody Mel Adams, discovers a mysterious object entering the solar system near Pluto, initially mistaken for a comet, but revealing far stranger properties. As she investigates, scientific curiosity spirals into existential dread, forcing her to confront humanity's place in the cosmos. Praised for its thoughtful science, suspenseful pacing, and emotional depth, The Object stood out among self-published hard sci-fi releases in 2024, earning acclaim in review circles. Most popular sci-fi of the year is Task Force Hammer, number 17 in Craig Allinson's Expeditionary Force series. The pirates stop one disaster only to discover a far worse threat, one they cannot defeat alone. As alliances are tested and the scale of the conflict becomes terrifyingly clear, Joe and Skippy push for an audacious plan that might be the galaxy's only shot. Fast, funny, and cinematic, it became a 2024 fan favorite indie sci-fi release. I actually had to do a reshoot of the best self-published fantasy novels of 2024. It turned out to be really hard to pin down just the right ones, and in my editing, I found the ones I didn't like for this anymore. There was better data. So, what I've come up with now, most successful self-published fantasy of 2024 goes to Undead Samurai by Baptiste Pinson Wu. And I just kind of love this novel. This is historical fantasy. When 9 samurai warriors are sent to confront a necromantic curse in feudal Japan, they must face cursed undead soldiers, personal trauma, and the spiritual weight of revenge. Combining Japanese folklore with fast-paced action, this novel quickly gained traction through glowing reader buzz and prominent indie fantasy review blogs. It rose to prominence in reader communities as one of 2024's standout self-published fantasy releases. And for the most popular, I give it to Mushroom Blues, the Hoffman Report series, number 1 by Adrian M. Gibson. This is fungal punk noir fantasy. I've never said that before in my life. In a war-ravaged fungal city, human detective Henrietta Hoffman and mushroom-headed cop Koji Namiko partner to investigate child disappearances amidst oppression and racial tension. This gritty, genre blending noir won multiple indie awards, including the Fan-Fi-Addict Best Indie Debut and Literary Titan Gold Book Award, and dominated reader discussion platforms throughout 2024. A worthy winner. So, what do you think? Have you read any of these books? A few? Most? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Whether you love them, didn't quite connect with them, or whether you have a mixed bag of thoughts to share. Let's celebrate these authors who put their stories out there against the odds. And of course, feel free to shout out any other outstanding self-published books that you think deserve more love. This list is big, but it's nowhere close to exhaustive on the best of self-publishing science fiction and fantasy. And I always want more recommendations for my TBR people. It's not quite long enough. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more fantasy, sci-fi, sometimes horror content multiple times every week. I just keep it coming. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters. You help make all this possible. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.